Welcome to HitPointsGaming. My name is Corey, and in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a game known as Ambal Tournament, published by Ring Salt Games, which is planning to be released on Kickstarter on April 30th. In Ambal Tournament, you're going to be taking on the role of a mage, either battling on a one-on-one duel or partnering up with a teammate and having a two-on-two contest. Now, growing up, I played Magic the Gathering. I played it a lot. I kind of stopped over the last decade, 20 years. Yeah, it's been a while. But where I was getting the same vibe with Ambal Tournament when I first heard about it, it differs in three ways. One of them is there's 4 schools of magic. There's fire, water, a sword trait, and an assassination school. Each player is going to build a deck of up to 20 cards, but only consisting of 2 schools of magics. Okay? Then from there, players are going to be facing off of each other, but playing cards at the same time, face down and then revealing them. So basically you're doing a duel, either launching offensive spells or trying to get in the other player's mind and either countering them or blocking them. So as opposed to Magic where you're playing a card and someone throws down an interrupt, this time you need to think ahead and figure out what my opponent's going to be playing to be one step ahead. The other thing that's different with Ambal Tournament that I find interesting is players have 50 health. Now by increasing the health from 20, I think is the original, to 50 in Ambal Tournament, there's a wide array of different cards that can be casted and effects, whether it's going to be bleeding, poison, or burning. And then you'll see how each school of magic plays into that role and what those different things do. So I'll take a minute, I'll show you how the game's played, and I'll also go in and show you some of the different cards that are going to be coming out. And at the end, I'll give you my thoughts on Ambal Tournament. Before getting started, I want to mention that the components and some of the cards here that I'm going to show you are obviously in the prototype form. You're going to see that not all of the art is complete on the card, so obviously this is going to be subject to change. So stay tuned to the Kickstarter for those changes that are going to be coming out. Also, there are 2 forms of playing Ambal Tournament. I'm going to be discussing and showing you the setup for the standard game, and then at the end I'll show you the differences in the advanced version. So, like I mentioned, players are going to create a deck of cards of up to 20 that has, you could have up to 2 schools of magic, and you can have 1 elite card in your deck, and you'll see some elite cards as I go forward. You're also going to have this player board here, which is going to keep track of your mana, so or energy it's called in this. So as opposed to, you know, trying to put out land and then spend that land in mana as in Magic, in this, every round you're going to be regenerating 8 energy, and that's what this board keeps track of. This is your max energy right here, so I can't go above 12, but at the end of every round, I'm going to be regenerating 8 energy. So this is really what you're going to be managing, and it's very important as you cast spells or whatnot. So what's going to happen first is every player is going to draw 7 cards, and then each player is going to select a card and place it face down. Say I wanted to cast this. Once everything has been placed face down, both cards are going to be revealed, and in a certain order, you're going to be resolving them. So if someone casted a counter spell, that's going to block this one. There's going to be certain conditions that come into play. But really what you're going to be looking for in your cards is what type of action it's going to be and what damage it's going to be. So everyone has 50 health, which you're going to be keeping track of with these tokens. And you're going to take a look here and see what happens. So this is action. The number in the top left-hand corner is how much mana it's going to take to actually cast this, again, or energy. So you're going to reduce that from your track here, and then deal 7 damage to target opponent. So this is actually pretty powerful. Some cards only maybe do 2 or 3 damage, or let's take a look here. Let's see what this one does. Deal 2 damage to target opponent for each curse on them. So this really only comes into play if you start loading them up with curses. So 7 damage out of 50 is pretty big, but you're spending 5 energy on this. So if I know that you're going to be coming at me right away with a big attack, and I was the opponent, maybe I want to send something down to counter that spell. This player is still going to have to spend that 5 energy, so it's completely wasted if I know that that's attack's coming. That's where I can start getting to my opponent's head and playing it that way. I mentioned that this could be a 2-on-2 game, so this does come with some tokens here that you'll be placing face down to show, like, okay, which one of my opponents am I actually casting this on? So that comes into play there. And then these are the 3 other effect tokens that can be done. So there's Poison, which does 1 damage at the beginning of every round, and it reduces healing. You've got Bleeding, which is 2 damage after the end of round, and then Burning, which is 3 damage. So let's go back to once the players have spent this, they've spent their energy, they've taken any damage, then they decide if they want to keep casting. Right? So then I'm going to play another card face down. And we're going to continue doing this until either both players are out of energy or both players decide to pass. So now that's pretty interesting. So if I'm managing my opponent's energy correctly, they may spend all their energy up front, and then it's going to allow me to cast my spells without them being able to block. And you'll see certain schools of magic, I think it's the sword one, where if they're not blocking, I'm going to be able to do additional damage to them. So that's something that's really neat about this game that I figured out as I was playing through. Knowing your opponent's deck and knowing when you should play cards and when you should counter, how you should manage your energy is really important. Now, players are out of the game, of course, if their health goes down to 0, but there's one other way that you lose, and that's if your max energy ever reaches 5. Okay, so there are ways that your opponent can actually reduce your max energy, and there's ways that you can reduce it. I think as one of the spells for fire, if I can pull it up real fast, when I actually cast it was like 6 damage or whatever, but it reduced my max energy down 1. So it's something that I would want to do towards the end of the match, because I don't want that to be very early, because it's of course it's going to affect me. And again, if I pass early, I'm going to be able to regenerate my 8 energy and be higher. So maybe I'll be at 12 energy versus your 8 in the following round. So managing that is really important. If you run out of your cards, you only have 20 in your deck, right? If you have to go through and you have to shuffle your discard pile into your deck again, you lose 2 max energy. So the game is going to end over time. One thing that I haven't seen yet, and I'm assuming this is something the designer is going to incorporate either in future expansions or even the Kickstarter, is I don't see any cards in the base set that increase your starting energy or your max energy. I'm assuming it is going to be able to go up because the track has room for it. It's just something that I want to see, because as I was playing, right in the beginning, I was getting affected by this max energy, and that really does start to hurt you. You're limited to the number of actions that you can do. When that max energy drops, I want to be able to increase that. So let's switch over and I'll show you some of the different schools of magics that we have and some of the strategy that I've seen out of each one of those. Let's start here with the Sword Path. So this card costs 4 energy to perform. It's an action, and this is one I was talking about earlier, where you deal 5 damage to target opponent, and you deal 2 more if they aren't using a skill. So I'm waiting again for my energy of my opponent to go low, and I know that I will be able to cast this without being interrupted. Or if you're playing a team game, maybe this is something that I go after an additional opponent if they have low energy. You'll see here, I think one of the strategies with the sword trait is exactly that. You're trying to get as many of these skills. There's ways to manipulate the cost here to become lower. So you'll be able to start just poking them, being able to block. It feels like I'm doing like a duelist with a sword, right? I think that's the whole point, and it does come across in this sense. Next is going to be the fire trait. Just like almost in any game, fire's all about blasting, doing a ton of damage. The one thing that's different with this is you do a lot of damage if I'm also burning. So not only can you set your opponent's burning for 2 rounds, where and this actually does damage, you can actually set yourself on fire to then do additional damage to your opponent, or you'll be able to regenerate more energy if you're burning. And there's also a card in here which is very important in the starter set that makes it so that you don't take damage from burning. So that's pretty cool. If you can set that up in the beginning, set yourself on fire, start going at them, you'll do a ton of damage, and then they'll just start bleeding over time. Next is going to be the water deck. Again, this is very similar to a lot of other water types and healing. This is heal drop, heal target ally for 6, If they're even lower than 15 health, they gain an energy and draw a card. So water is really about healing. There's a lot of counters in this school of Magic that you can play. Very defensive, I would say. If you're playing a team game, I think this is very important. Next is going to be the Assassination School of Magic. This one plays a lot with curses and duration cards. So this one here is it's like a debuff, right? And it lasts for 3 rounds. So you're going to play this, and when this curse expires or is removed by you, deal 4 damage to all opponents. So it's pretty nice. When I was playing against this, I would have like 2 or 3 curses stacked up against me over time, and that's really what this path is looking to do. Throw out a lot of debuffs, either remove them, or when they stack, they do more damage. That's kind of the strategy that I see here. Now, I mentioned that every deck can have 1 elite card, okay? So this is the elite card for the sword path. This is called Raging Speed. It lasts for 2 rounds, and your sword actions cost 2 less energy, but they deal 2 less damage. So not applied to curses and boons. So this is something that you would want to play at the beginning of a turn, when you know you're going to be, you have a lot of cards that you just want to throw out. Peg them really early with maybe cards that are only going to cost you 1 or 2 energy, and then save up for that one, like I said at the end, the Fierce Thrust. This is only going to cost you 2 energy to do, but you want to do it once they're done with spending all of their energy. So having Raging Speed is going to be helpful. Yeah, you're going to be doing less damage overall, but you're going to be able to get a lot more cards out. I find this is very important. Here's the water one. This one's pretty ridiculous. This is deal 6 energy or 6 damage to target opponent, and they lose 1 total energy. This is one that kept getting used against me. I think this might be the most powerful card in the base game that I've been able to play with, because having them lose that 1 total energy really starts to hurt you, especially as the game goes on. I find this is very powerful, and even though that the water deck is all about countering and healing, it doesn't mean that they cannot also deal out damage. So that gives you an idea of the 4 different schools of Magics and what type of cards and strategy play style that each one's going to represent. Now this base game comes with 100 cards. I believe it's going to be 25 for each school of Magic. I would be interested to know if additional schools are going to be coming out and knowing what those types of strategies are going to be. Are they planning to have maybe additional effects that come into play? That was one of the cool things as I played through the game. I started to know the strategy behind that school, and is that the play style that I like to do? Because you can create a deck with just 1. You know, I could just go strictly fire, or maybe throw in fire with some water to do healing. I would like to see what other plans that they have coming out. Now, I did mention that there's a basic version and an advanced version. And speaking with the designer, the advanced version is actually the way that the game was intended and was first created. And then he wanted to kind of make it easier for more people to get introduced into the game, and that's what he recommends people to start with. But the advanced version is really where the game shines, because your battle deck is only going to be 12 cards. And you're going to be coming with an extra library, it's called, of 20 other cards. So still up to 2 schools of Magics, and you can have as many elite cards as you want in that library. But at the end of every round, you can reduce your max energy by 1 to take any 3 cards from the library and shuffle it into your battle decks. So now I'm starting to customize my deck based on what schools you have and your play style. So I know that there was something in Magic the Gathering that you got to do this, a sideboard I think it was. I don't even know if that still happens. This is a way of incorporating that into this game. And it's really important because, again, in order for that to happen, you need to reduce your total energy. Now, to make up for this, at the end of, well, when you need to shuffle, when your deck runs out of cards, because now you only have 12, instead of reducing your total energy by 2, it's reduced to 1. So that kind of balances out, and I do like that better. So I can see, you know, what do you have in there? Do you have a lot of curses? Great, I came with cards that can remove curses and start playing it that way. So that's the one twist using the advanced deck, and I would say once you get comfortable, I would recommend switching over to that, because that's really how the game was designed and intended to be played. So Ambal Tournament is something that is getting me back into playing card games, really. I stopped for a while. You know, I did the whole, like I said, Magic Gathering for so long. A few other games since then. I've kind of gotten on this like a living card game kick. What's nice about this is it's set number of cards that are coming in this deck. It's not like I'm opening package and not knowing what I'm going to get. So I do appreciate that. It's helpful. I'm not going to have to dump a ton of money just to get random stuff. You know, again, that goes into the whole like loot box craze, you know, in video games. And I've got nothing against that, but it's nice to know now ahead of time what I'm going to be receiving, and I know I'm going to have like a level playing field against my opponent, and it really just comes down to how I'm building my deck, how I'm building that library to substitute as I play my opponent. So definitely interested in when the Kickstarter goes live to see what other items that are going to be coming along with this base game, if any, and seeing what the plans are down the road for Ambal Tournament to grow and become a true tournament style type game. As a reminder, this game is going to be launching on April 30th on Kickstarter. The one thing that is unfortunate is I did not have a chance to play a 2-on-2 game due to the current state of the world. So that's one thing I do want to get a play session in to kind of weigh in on how I think that's going to be. But I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to be coming out of the Kickstarter. Again, if there's going to be new schools of Magic that's going to be introduced. So excited to see that happen. So thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the video below. And I will see you next time.